Hello there, guys. Welcome back to another episode of Wrestle Tea with me, Sam Leterna. Today, I am very excited for my guest, Daniel Garcia. He has been all over the indies for years. As of late in 2020, he made a stellar comeback appearing for AEW, NXT, VXS, Limitless, and we're going to talk Limitless, but how are you doing, Daniel Garcia?
I'm doing great. I love the name of the show, Wrestle Tea. That's nice. I like it.
Thank you. I like tea, and I get the scoop. I get the wrestling scoop, so tea is the scoop.
Yeah, we're gonna delve into the tea today, hopefully.
Oh yes. Well, I'm really curious about this because up until hitting up for the interview, I wasn't really well versed on like who you are as a wrestler aside from being a technician. But I did know that I love the name The Red Death. So where did you come up with that?
Thank you. It was actually a nickname that was given to me by Andy Williams. He's the butcher on AEW. Because at the time I was wearing the Louis Vuitton Supreme rip. I had like that, and I was like a 150-pound, like super skinny, like longer hair, and we thought it would be cool if I had a nickname that like didn't really fit how I looked. So I started calling me the Red Death, and it kind of caught on. I don't really like the nickname as much as other people seem to. When I came back from injury, I was kind of planning on dropping the nickname, but then I kind of thought I feel like people know me more as that than they even do my actual name, so it'd be kind of foolish of me to drop it. But yeah, Andy Williams came up with it. It was kind of like a ironic nickname, almost how Daniel Bryan had American Dragon when he was on the Indies, like this very over the top, dramatic nickname for a pretty normal looking guy. But then as I progressed in my career, it kind of ended up fitting my style more and ended up fitting my look more. So it kind of worked out for the best, I guess.
So you unexpectedly grew into the name and kind of learned to love it for what it is and what it represents to the fans.
Yeah, it's cool. The only downfall of it is I have to wear like red gear all the time. I can't do any more colors. So that's the biggest.
Yeah, and red gear is like the prototypical like wrestling gear color, right? Everyone loves red gear.
Yeah, I think I'm changing it a little bit up for WrestleMania weekend. So I got some surprise colors. Maybe we'll see.
Ooh, okay. So the Red Death in purple or silver or gold or something like that.
Maybe something in the red family.
Okay, cool. Yeah, like when I saw a couple of your matches, I could definitely see the correlation between like that name, the Red Death, and then your style because you kind of just pick apart your opponent very methodically, which I respect. And speaking of that, do you have any specific influences, I guess? To me, I see a lot of like British style, like classic stuff from the 80s, like Johnny Saint and stuff like that in your style.
Yeah, influences would definitely be like I kind of have a weird like array of styles. Whenever I tell people who my favorite wrestlers were, they're always pretty surprised. Like I love like Mark Henry. I love like
Really?
yeah, I like weird like wrestlers that you wouldn't imagine me liking. But style that's more for the what they bring to the table in wrestling. But stylistically wise, I really like Chris Hero. I like William Regal, Daniel Bryan, Minoru Suzuki. So I think when I tell people that kind of stuff, they kind of can see more of a correlation with that than when I tell them like Mark Henry or Triple H or Batista or something like that.
Yeah, but the intensity, I guess, that they bring to the table, you can also take that and make that your own.
Exactly. And something that I really admire about those guys is their instant credibility and believability right when they walk through the curtain. Everybody knows who they are within 5 seconds of watching them. There's no mistake about who they are as a wrestler. And that's what I able.
And as far as your 2020 goes, I know we're in 2021, but we're going to backtrack a little bit. I know that you had a crazy 2019 with that freak accident that happened, breaking both of your legs, right? It was worth and probably some other minor injuries. Coming back and rehabbing your legs and getting strong again, and then getting the opportunity to be on, a show like AEW Dynamite. Did that kind of feel like a full circle moment for you in terms of like from where you started to where you are now?
Definitely. I'm a full believer in God's plan, even though a lot of the time I don't know why stuff is happening or what the reason for it is. I think there's a reason for everything. And I don't know exactly what the reason was for me breaking both my legs, but I think almost 2 years later, I think it's worked out pretty well. And I think the reasoning is I think we're seeing it unfold before our eyes each and every day as I grow as a professional wrestler.
Definitely. Did you miss it while you were away from it?
Oh yeah, I definitely missed it, but at the same time, it was a good little break. I feel like at the time, I wasn't like getting like burnt out, like I was gonna quit wrestling or anything, but I kind of found myself getting into like very routine in wrestling, which I think is dangerous. Like just going through the motions when I get to shows, um, like not being as excited as I was when I first started. And I feel like being away from wrestling for those couple months while I rehab my broken legs with wrestling being taken away from me, I really feel like it gave me the time to appreciate how blessed I really am to be so good at professional wrestling and to do what I do every single weekend. A lot of people would like kill to be in the position that I'm in every single weekend, and I feel like sometimes I almost take it for granted. So that's something I'm really working on and continue to work on every day.
Cool. Well, speaking of not taking things for granted, along with your AEW Dynamite debut, you were also within months of that on NXT television. Based on having worked for two of the biggest companies in wrestling in the world, did that kind of show you in any way like what you yourself as a wrestler want out of a wrestling company as like a worker? I'm not saying choose AEW or WWE, but like what was the lesson in that for you?
It both experiences were definitely very eye opening for me. It helped me I guess confirm and a lot of beliefs that I had in my mind about companies and things like that, if that makes sense, without giving away too much. Um, but, but I'm very blessed and grateful for both the opportunities. I had a really fun experience with both of them and great learning experiences as well. And I feel like when I was in the ring in those places, the thing that helped me the most, the biggest takeaway, is I didn't feel out of place in either of the companies. I felt like when I was in that ring, when I was in the locker room, I felt like I belonged there. And I feel like that was the biggest takeaway I had from working both of those places. I feel like any locker room that I go in the world, I feel like I belong there and I can hold my own and be one of the best.
Yeah, I saw your tweet where you said like even though I was in like an NXT locker room, I still felt like I was one of the best in the world, and that's what you have to believe as a wrestler, right? To keep going, because sometimes it gets really hard just doing show by show by show, and then it gets kind of you get complacent, right? Like you were saying right before your injury. But in terms of like, I don't know, doing like trying new things in wrestling now, because you've been wrestling for a couple of years, is there something that you want to accomplish on the indies before you inevitably get signed? Because we know it's going to happen, and I know you're Limitless Wrestling champion and we're getting to that, but I gotta ask, what do you still want to accomplish?
There's so many things that I still want to accomplish. We're in a weird time where anybody can get signed at any given moment.
Mm-hmm.
All respect to the dudes who sign when they get offered something. I think that's great that you're getting your money, that you're getting all the exposure. That's perfectly fine. Like if you do that, no takeaway from you. That's great. Do do.
Yes.
But I think there's something to be said about the people who are willing to grind it out on the indies and
Mm.
do put in the work to become the best wrestler in the world, and that's my goal. Like my goal isn't necessarily to wrestle for NXT or AEW or things like that. My goal is strictly to serve the canvas and become the best wrestler in the world. I don't wrestle to serve myself. I don't wrestle to serve other people. I wrestle to serve professional wrestling. And I feel like me becoming the best in the world eventually, hopefully, I feel like I'm close, maybe. I feel like me giving back into professional wrestling and me helping train students at my wrestling school and me helping give advice to people on indie shows that I'm on with. I feel like that's how I give back to professional wrestling, and that's my goal. Um, yeah,
It's
like
interesting that you say that because when I interviewed Anthony Green, he kind of had that same mentality about like not the destination being what's most important, but the journey and helping people along the way and doing what's best for wrestling,
yeah.
which I recommend both of you for. So you consider yourself or would like to be when the world is back to normal, a journeyman of sorts in wrestling?
Not necessarily a journeyman because I think a journeyman gets like a bad reputation.
Okay.
Which I don't think it should be. I think a journeyman are commendable. If you look at people like Pepper Parks, one of my trainers, Tyler Bateman, Chris Dickinson, these people who have been around professional wrestling for like 20 years and are legends, I believe to be really indie legends. And then once their time comes, like I said earlier, God's plan, like God's timing is perfect. They're ready. Once Pepper Parks got the call, okay, we're gonna sign you to AEW. He was ready, and he's the best version of himself for it. Same thing with Tyler Bateman with Ring of Honor. Same thing with Chris Dickinson for New Japan. I believe that all of these places, when they hit them up, they're in the perfect position for them to get the most value out of professional wrestling and out of that company as they possibly can.
Word. Right face, right place, right time.
Exactly.
Sure. Well, speaking of right face, right place, right time, you just this past week defeated Christian Casanova to become the new Limitless Wrestling champion. Tell me about that match and tell me how it feels to have defeated someone who's now going on to, the big leagues, to NXT.
It feels great. It's kind of bittersweet in some ways. Christian is one of my closest friends in professional wrestling. But it didn't stop me from choking him out in the middle of the ring. That's what friends do, though, I guess. But it's a great feeling. Limitless is one of the best companies, independent companies in the world, I think. And if you look back at my career, I drove to Limitless Wrestling without being booked 9 hours from Buffalo to Maine.
Wow.
Didn't get a spot on the show. Next show, I drove again. I think I had like a scramble match. I was one of MJF's cronies when he came back. I was wearing like a black mask and jeans, like faceless person, one of his cronies. And then fast forward a couple years, I'm Limitless champion. And I think that goes to show I'm not big on saying that people should like, oh, you got to like pay your dues for years and take all this crap and stuff like that, because I think that's a little extreme. But I do think that this go to show you what paying your dues and working hard and believing and investing in yourself can get you. But being one of the best in the world helps your case with that, in my opinion.
Do you feel any sort of like pressure because the last two Limitless champions have gotten signed? Or do you kind of feel like, all right, I got it in the bag now. Like, I'm out. Like, in some time, like, I'll get someone knocking on my door for a contract. Not that you want the contract yet, as we spoke about, but do you feel that the belt has that implication now?
I think the belt definitely has an implication. And if anybody has been paying attention to the online dirt sheets of wrestling community, people think they know what my decisions are and where I'm heading in a few months. All I'm going to say is don't believe everything you read on the internet. But I think I would feel a lot more pressure if my goal was to get signed or if my goal was to make $1 million right away with professional wrestling. But that's not my goal. I believe that everybody is running their own race and everybody is on completely different paths in life. And my path isn't MJF's path. My path isn't Anthony Green's path. My path isn't Christian Casanova's path. My path is Daniel Garcia's path. And I'm going to keep going on that path until I become the best wrestler on the planet. And yeah, I think that's the perfect way to describe my path. That's all my goal is in wrestling. I don't care where I have to go to prove it, where I'm going to end up. Wherever I go, I hope that they can give me the opportunity to become the best wrestler in the world and the best wrestler that I possibly can be.
And as one of the best wrestlers in the world, who are you hoping to have step up to the plate to defend that Limitless Championship belt against?
I'd kind of like to have one more go at Lee Moriarty just because he's a IWTV champion now. I had a match with him and I beat him, and for some reason, everybody was still saying that he's better than me. And I'm like, how is he better than me? I just made him tap out in the middle of the ring, like
Was
easy.
that Vacation Land Cup?
Asian Land Cup, yeah.
Yes.
So it's just a little thing to me, I guess. I beat a dude, and then people say he's still better than me. It just really doesn't make sense to me. I made him tap out. It wasn't like a fluke victory. So I'd like to have another go at it with him. Other people I have my eyes on, Trish Adora. I'd really like to wrestle Trish Adora. She's fantastic. I watched her Iron Man match against Tony Deppen, actually on the way home from a Limitless show. So I would like to scrap it up with her. Other people, Myron Reed would be cool. Yeah. There's not a lot of people left, I feel like. There's not a lot of options left on the indies for me to wrestle. Everyone's getting taken up so quick. But those are top 3 people who I would like to mix it up with again.
Well, I'd personally like to see you versus Charles Mason. I think that would be sick.
Yeah.
Maybe one day.
I'm such a big fan of all those House of Glory dudes. Cash, Charles Mason, Blazing Lion, and Ringleader Midas.
I love them.
He and Matt were pretty close friends, RIP. So I kind of got to know them through him. And whenever I see those dudes now, they feel like it's family. It feels like they're my brothers.
Definitely. They're so hardworking and talented, and you can tell that they love wrestling and they're not just like in it for themselves, which is, I think, the best part about that whole crew that travels together.
I agree, and because their trainer was the Amazing Red.
Hmm.
Giving back to wrestling more than the Amazing Red. Not many people. I feel like when you're trained by him, your purpose has to be to give back to professional wrestling.
Well, guys, that is the tea from Daniel Garcia himself. Be sure to check out Limitless and all of the upcoming projects of Daniel Garcia's as well. Everything is in the bio, social media, merch links, all of that. Thank you so much for joining me, Daniel. I appreciate it.